Welcome live on the Game Changing Work Show, where there is no difference between personal and professional development. And we are here to focus on the people side of organizations, because that is where what really truly drives transformation. So, our topic for today, those of you that are watching us live or on the replay, welcome, welcome. We are on the, okay, you went there. So today we're going to talk about why you'll never be in management if you're not a great problem solver. So those of you that don't know, we have a YouTube channel called the Game Changing Work Channel. You want to go over there and subscribe so you can catch that library. You also will get notified when our next show is. So those of you watching the replay, you'll be able to watch it easier over there. So go on over to the YouTube channel, Game Changing Work Channel, and click that bell and get notified.
All right, I'm gonna put the topic back on.
Our topic. Got to do my little promo. So, those of you that don't know, of course, hi, I'm Veronica. I am an Agile and life coach. I'm actually trying to change the game and combine both because I focus on the process side, but I'm trying to merge more into saying, no, wait, look, there's more about transformation. It's the people side. Now, all of us Agilists know that, but we don't necessarily get hired for that. You get what I'm saying? And Roxana, you work with
I work with managers, with mid to senior managers and also small business CEOs from corporate, nonprofit world, and even some of them academic. And I help them become dream bosses and build dream teams. So talking about our topic today, and the fact that we also have the YouTube channel, you will see a lot of related topics in there to the topic that we're talking about today. Because we're all about, as Veronica said, people. It's all, at the end of the day, going to be about the people who work in the business, who will make things happen. So what we're discussing today, you will get a lot of information from all of the videos that we've done previously as well. So let's start with why will we never be in management if we're not great problem solvers?
So to connect everyone of why this is important, right? We looked up to see what are the 7 traits of some of these great leaders in history. And the other thing is what are some of the things that you probably hear when they talk about them? And also is, what does it feel like in the presence of these type of leaders, right? So connecting all of those senses, those of you trying to understand why this is so important. Now, you might have had a manager that may or may not have all these traits. I get it. But we're talking about the leaders that are really driving change and really shaping the people around them. And that's what people are looking for these days. So there are people that make a ton of money, right? We know a company called Top Gun Ventures that places game-changing leaders. And guess what? They have these 7 traits. So it is something that's highly sought after, folks. So let's jump into it.
Okay, let's jump into it. So first trait is they follow the problem solver's philosophy. Now, for those of you who don't know what the problem solver's philosophy is, let me tell you that it starts, and you might not be surprised, with Einstein. He said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with the problems longer. And this is the problem solver's philosophy, right? You have to stay with the problem long enough for you to find a solution to it. Because if you're just jumping from one problem to another, you're not going to come up with the solution to any of them, right?
And we're going to show you in just a bit what it means by reframing. So it's not just having a problem and then getting to action and being highly reactive about the problem. It's more about that philosophy of sitting on the problem and really understanding it.
Yeah.
You're not trying to jump too quick to solving it. And that's one of the points of that philosophy. And what's the next one?
So the next one is that they're not afraid of controversy. And here is where we can discuss a lot about it. But basically, the whole point of this is you come up with a solution that might not be liked or accepted, that people are going to fear, that people are not going to adopt, and so on. But that doesn't mean that you don't communicate it. That doesn't mean that you don't express it. That's the thing. If you're going to look at coming up with a solution that everybody will like, chances are that you're never going to come up with any solution, because not everybody will like the same thing.
And so this is going to hit an area of what we're going to jump into is it's not necessarily the action and the behaviors of problem solving. So skills is how to do something. Mm-hmm. What you're going to start realizing in these 7 traits is it's also mindset. How you have to not be afraid that some people might not like the problem you're solving with or how you're looking at the problem. So when we start to talk about reframing, we'll show that you'll know what we're talking about. So what's number 3?
Oh, I love number 3. Number 3 is they take their ideas from start to finish. And here's what this means for all of you people out there who come up with ideas very easily, right? How many times have we come up with an idea and didn't take it through to completion? Because you didn't have time, you got bored, you thought it's not an idea worth pursuing, reasons and excuses. But the thing is, when you have an idea that you want to take all the way through completion, you might actually come up with a solution that's reliable, that's acceptable, that's long-term. You just have to stay and work on that idea. One idea that's not taken to completion is not going to work. So stay with it, work on it, make it happen, and then expect to see results.
And what does that have to do with everything? Because the creativeness and ideation about a problem, right? You have to come to a solution, right? If you identify a problem and there's 2, let me say it differently. There's 2 halves. One is learning how to identify a problem well. And then 2, how to come up with great ideas that are going to actually solve that great problem. This is all about number 2.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to number 4. They use their imagination to expand their constraints. So what this means is that, for instance, you have a problem and then you only see a solution that is not acceptable or is not going to be accepted by everybody. And then what you do is actually you come up with a second solution that's going to be even less acceptable and accepted by people, right? I mean, in this article that we're referring to, let me give you the example here. It was President Kennedy's administration when they were dealing with potential conflict with the Soviet Union. And so initially, they received an initial letter from Khrushchev who said, okay, we can have peace if you do this. And then Khrushchev sent a second letter, which was even less acceptable than the first one. And what Kennedy did is pretended that the second letter didn't exist, and they just accepted the terms in the first letter. So basically, when you think that you can't have it worse, think about what's even a worse alternative to the one that you're proposing. And then that's what it means. Expand your constraints, and then you will see how people adopt the first one and go for the first one.
And again, this is going to be related to because the way that you believe and think is going to drive your behaviors and actions around this particular one. So what's number 5?
5 is, and we'll talk about this, they adapt to the situation and environment. And here's the trick. Situation and environment are gonna matter so much in how you're doing things, because basically this dictates the culture of that environment, and this dictates what's possible to do and what's acceptable to do in there. So this is a big one.
Yeah, this aligns a lot to Graves' model, where and this is something that I'm really into lately, and we're going to show a little bit of that when it comes to the change logical model. But when you ask someone what they fear most, and if you used Graves, which he has like a color span, and maybe we'll have that a session for another day, based on the environment and the individual. So just imagine a collection of individuals, they might have different fears. But when you are talking about Kennedy and his issue, when he's talking to another culture, they probably have a similarity as a collective of how they're all running from. They have more of a sense of control, right? They might be in a blue, like where they need to have that. And so they're going to have different fears than the culture of the United States. And so that's why you have to kind of understand the different groups that you're working with is what do they fear most, right? Or what do they desire most? It won't be the same. Now,
exactly.
Let's go to number 6. That was a fun one.
So, yeah, right. So number 6 is that they embrace the help of others. And this is big because when we talk about help, and we all like to help, right? We all feel good about helping. And yes, it's good because of that connection that you have of doing something good for somebody else, but also because it helps us feel like we're in a power position. Helping somebody gives you more power because you have the solution.
Yeah.
When you are asking for help, that puts you in a more vulnerable position, because what that means is I don't have a solution, and you depend on what people can actually help you with.
So are you saying this is another mindset?
Oh, no. Of course it is another mindset.
And what's the last one?
Okay, here's the last one, which we both love. They get clear on their desired outcome. Ta-da. And I think, like, if we can even start from here, because again, you don't know the outcome. Why would you do anything? Why would you even look for a solution? Why would you even want to problem solve, right? If you don't know what your desired outcome is.
And here's the funny part. Coaching in general, or even life coaching, all of these 7 things are stuff that we go through with individuals. What's happening is there might be, I don't remember all the numbers by heart, but say number 3, number 5, especially the mindset ones, they have a block. They're not seeing it that way. Mm-hmm. And so part of coaching is helping them with that. And life coaching is all about helping them manage some of those emotional and beliefs that could be blocking them. So this Agile coach process, why is it extremely important to marry the two of life coaching and Agile coaching, especially when you are trying to drive action and behaviors. Okay. I will say this a lot. And this is what you also do, Roxana, and yours. So we have a couple of visuals because we want to tie this all together. So
let's share those.
So how does this all work? Now we will always show this because this is what we're changing work is really driving from these upper levels as we all are wanting to do the how, right? And behaviors, and we'll reorg, we'll restructure, we'll do all these kind of things about our environment, but we never really deal with these top pieces that drive everything. Mm-hmm. And so when you talk about the logical level of problem solving, what we're talking most times in organizations when they say problem solving skills are at the capabilities level of how they do it. And then they probably will talk about behaviors they wouldn't see when somebody is a good problem solver if you were to assess somebody's problem solving skills. However, if you saw this, if you remember the 7 traits that we just mentioned, and we're trying to, tie this all together, what if we worked from a higher level, so that when someone is trying to actually utilize a learned skill set, such as problem solving, that those 7 traits that we talked about actually can be used, because no skills in the world are going to help you develop those 7 traits. Right, Roxana?
They won't, because here's why. If you can't apply them in that environment, they won't work, because you won't even be applying them. This is where a lot of training programs fail, because you're basically teaching people some skills and asking them to change behavior while maintaining the same environment, and while not going deeper into the why they would be doing that, and what is it for? What does it help with? Right? So you're only working in the middle is not going to help, because you don't have a solid ground for it, and you have no direction, no sense of direction of why we're doing this. This is where it fails. So when we talk about skills and behavior, we cannot disregard the rest. This is where, in the 7 points that we discussed, that's why adapting, and we saw problem solvers adapt to the environment. But think about it. What if I don't have an environment where I can actually use problem solving skills that doesn't allow me to fail, or that doesn't allow me to try and test and innovate? I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm not going to get results.
And if we really think about problem solving skills and how some organizations are structured, when we start to think about that, it might not allow if you're just a doer, and doers just do, and they're not independent thinkers, or at least they don't have an environment that flourishes that, or an environment that helps them learn how to do it and mentally do it. So if you've always had a fear of doing it, that sits at a higher level of belief. And so when you are me coming in as an agile coach and going through these agile transformations, and you want people to change the way they work, that has a lot to do with here. So if I go to the next thing, we're going to talk about what that is. And I got to get my little clicker working here. So here is what I love about this. It really is a combination of what I get into of neuro-linguistic programming language, of NLP, and also Ken Wilber's integral model. And so what this is really showing you, and this is why life coaching is so ingrained in these transformations that are out there today, is that it's not only personal transformation, but it's collective. And this is why. So internal self with problem solving, right? Which is the top skill that all companies are needing, which is highly related to business agility and transformations, is that if the internal self, the thoughts, the feelings, the values they have, has a direct correlation of the external that we see, which are the actions and behaviors. So if you're learning a skill like problem solving, how you think, how you feel, and your value system is going to have a direct impact to that. Now, problem solving doesn't usually happen in a vacuum, right? Especially in organizations, or how if you're dealing with family, this is both personal too. So internal other is you taking a perspective outside of yourself about others. So if you have a problem, there's you, how I think about it, and then me thinking about how it affects you, Roxana, right? Or how the problem affects clients that we serve, right? You can look at it in many different, and what are their thoughts and feelings and values about it? And then you look at the actions and behaviors. And now remember, this is collective other. So this is when you start to think about the structures of organizations, the hierarchy, the technology, right? So this is where all the process and technology sits. And then the other is the people side. But the people side is all of these three quadrants: internal self, external self, and internal other. So that's 75% driven in a transformation. So if you take the whole as 100%, and this is what kills me, right? And I'm not a math person, but we're going to go there right now. Most people were hired for process and technology when it comes to transformations, right? And they're thinking, which is only 25% of what really drives it.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys sit on that one for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And I look at this and I realize we're all focusing on the external because that was easier, right? I think we've just taken the shortcut here. When we talk about personal, professional, organizational transformation, we took the easy way out because it was like, oh yeah, okay, fine, let's work with actions, let's work with behaviors. And what this says, actually, a lot of this is focused on the internal world and starts there. So, and a lot of this, if I have to give a name to it, it's going to be, you want to be good at problem solving, you just work on your on developing your emotional intelligence, because that's what this means. You focus on internal self, and you also, because that's when you also start to understand the internal other. Because when you can manage relationships with people successfully, relationships at home and at work, you don't just look at actions and behaviors, but you also recognize cues of what they're not saying. Yeah. Of what they're not showing you. And how are you going to recognize those if you don't recognize your own thoughts, feelings, and values, because you don't focus on your internal self? So it all starts, you want to get good at problem solving and relationship management, then you start with developing your level of emotional intelligence and work on it.
So what does life coaching have to do with it? Everything. And the reason why, when we think of life coaching, we automatically think of well-being, which is popular, obviously, now in 2021 of what all happened in 2020. But here's the thing. I don't know if some of you realize, but business coaching is actually under life coaching as well. If you look at all the categories of what you can do as a career and a profession and life coaching, they all sit there. And the reason why is what you guys are looking at right now. It's all about your mindset and what is driving, and then you having to take a perspective of mindsets outside of you, right? So you have three different types of perspectives. You have the self, what's happening inside you. Mm-hmm. You have what's happening outside of you, right? Which is the other. And then you also have a perspective where you disassociate yourself from a scenario where you become the observer. Now, in life coaching, we teach you all these things. We have a lot of things that we bring to the table. And this is why it's so important where, Roxana, you're a life coach. You might not say that, but you are, right? And because anybody that deals with the personal transformation or the collective transformation on the people side are life coaches.
And I think, and this is where we struggle a lot, and I think we don't like all of the terminology that exists out there, because I think we've made a pretty clear distinction between life and work. And that's where I don't agree even with the expression work-life balance, because work is part of life. Or as you said, business coaching is going to be part of life coaching because of that, because life happens at work as well. And we're not sending a robot to do the work instead of us. It's still us doing the work. So that's another part of life. Work life, home life, family, all of our personal development and growth, that is part of life. So when you talk about life coaching, it actually can cover different aspects, but I have never, ever, and you can ask any kind of coach out there, executive coach, business coach, whatever coach they call themselves, they are. I haven't met one that's been successful that does not address personal transformation in their work with their clients, especially if they talk about executive levels and high performance. It all starts with beliefs, values, everything that's tied to the personal stuff, because that's going to be the fuel, the driver for every external thing that we do.
And perhaps I need to do a better job where, if saying the word life coach, maybe that's not people associate it with well-being now, because especially what's happened. Maybe, I always said mindset and success coach, because basically I help with your mindset and I help you be successful based on some of the things that how to implement your actions and behaviors. Now, as we talk about this is why it's so important to really wrap our heads around what this means, because trying to be more successful in our businesses and ramping up in this year and next year, and probably I would say roadmap. A lot of companies are really thinking about the next 3 years, right? Of what their businesses look like. Like, how are you looking at that percentage? Are you only focusing on from this quadrant, or the 75%, is not having the love that it needs? Now, obviously we need all 100%. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is 75% of it is people driven. 75%.
Exactly.
And that's where I need to say this more often, right?
I think we need to say it more often, because then it will make sense of why I always say your people issues are going to be your business issues.
Now, this visual is really small because it's fixed. So I'm going to just read this out. It's for reframing, which is basically the skill set and ability to come up with great problems. And so you have to rethink the question. You have to engage the right people. You have to focus on the why, rephrase the problem, assume nothing, make lots of bad ideas, explore potential solutions. So all of those 7 traits that we mentioned, these people are great reframers. Would you think, Roxana, based on these things I just described? They're very directly correlated to the 7 traits that this article leaders in our history.
Exactly. That's what
they were great
I was
reframers.
Thinking. Exactly. And I was thinking, 8 tips to create impact. And you look at all of these, and again, it drives us back to the matter of, do people feel safe doing that in the current environment? What's the status of your current environment? How are they operating? What's, as you said, what is it that they fear? What's one of the fears, the worst fear that I have? How do you know they're going to be able to do all of that reframing, right? If they don't have the environment, if they don't feel safe to do it.
Now we're going to dive a little more values and beliefs quadrant. So again, just to kind of recap, we are sitting here for right now. We are not ignoring this. It's just not the focus of the conversation right now. So when we're talking about problem solving skills, so we're saying why you do things, has a direct correlation of how you do it and what the result's going to look like. That's what we're saying. Now we're gonna dive into also this level, which is impact, and that's the energy that an individual is going to want to focus on problem solving, because it's not necessarily the same way. So when we look at here, what this is 5 different energy focuses on how a preferred way an individual would want to focus on their work. Now, they also might be stuck and challenged when it comes to problem solving. And these examples here, and our webinar, those of you, we will share the link later, is going to dive into this more. So if you can't see anything, don't worry. This is just a tease. I'm going to read like the strategists, because those are known to be great problem solvers because they have that strategic energy that they want to put into things. Now, it doesn't mean that because you want to put your energy as a strategist that you're a good strategist, because you might have to work on your mindset and you might have to work on your skill development. So this has nothing to do with your or how you think and feel about things, right? It's just saying, I like to put my energy in there. Now, you give them what they see and they see that big picture, they have the context. So think about reframing, and you needed to have some context about the problem. Give them a chance to influence and shape that strategy. So they're shaping that problem. They can see, they can connect the dots. Involve them in the outside of a new initiative, not halfway through. So if you're working on a problem, right? Think of in a team context, and then you bring in this to focus on strategy, and you didn't bring them from the beginning, they're probably going to get irritated. They're going to, so they can make sense of it. And then you're going to be like, oh, we got to repeat ourselves. Well, you do with this person, and they won't engage until you do. Recognize their need to plan. They don't like constantly changing goalpost. So this is where they're going to need help when it comes to, depending on, not all people, but say you have a high energy in this area where you might not like the idea on the solution, and we actually change our mind about it. Because that experimenting and failing and trying out, if they have a low energy in one of these other areas here that you guys are going to learn more about in our webinars, they might not have a high tolerance for it. They might get irritated.
Yeah. I also think when we look back at the 7 traits of problem solvers and how they either are not afraid to come up with a controversial idea, how they adapt to the environment, how they ask for ideas from others, all of that. If you look at the 5, if you look back at the 5 impact energies, I think it's going to be crucial to know, first of all, who you have on the team and what their energy, the team members' energy, goes naturally towards. If you have game changers, you can ask them for ideas that might be controversial, but it might be that kind of idea that you need to see through all the way to implementation. Or if you have polishers, maybe they can solve the problem not by coming up with a new idea, but by creating something better out of the things that you already have. Or if you have playmakers on the team, maybe the problem, if the problem relates to a conflict that arises in your team or team members not working well together, you might want to make use of playmakers to have the team working well together and solve that problem, right? For implementers, it's just maybe you have a great idea, but you don't know how to implement it. You don't know how to take it through to completion. You might want to ask an implementer and have them work together with the strategists of how can we implement that crazy idea that the game changer came up with. And there you use all of that energy on your team to solve problems depending on what the problem is and what the outcome is, what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to get. Because it's not going to be possible to do it all by yourself. So that's one thing, recognizing what your energy is, understanding who you have on your team and who can help solve what problem at the right time.
Now,
that's crucial.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I think one of the things that probably wasn't on there about being great problem solvers and why probably won't be in management, especially modern management with people leaders, this is what kind of where we're going, not the traditional, is that great problem solvers know their blind spots. And so they know what blind spots they need to fill. And so what they do is start figuring out who are people that fill those blind spots. Now, great leaders will figure out their teams, and they will naturally try to form teams in this nature. And they start realizing that. But here's the thing, that takes a while. And so what part of the process, and this is something that's going to lead into, which is a good segue, webinar, when we talk about teaming strategies, you can either do it the long way, or you can actually figure out what your outcomes are, starting to create that strategy and align without having either to do the crapshoot guessing game or really trying to figure out what people are going to do. So, and you're not always, some people are really good at it, and some people, it takes a while. But a lot of organizations, especially a lot of them that are working out today with outsourcing, and you have a lot of contractors, or you're growing and you have new people coming in all the time, that method is not going to work. It's not results fast enough, knowing how the market trends are, where you have to be a little bit faster in your response. And so are you going to want to take 6 months to figure out to learn your people? Or are you going to try to find a better way to get there, right? Accelerate it. I'm not saying don't get to know your people, but accelerate the process.
Yeah, exactly. And that's particularly useful, especially when you don't know the people. So when you're trying to scale and grow your team, that's when you need this, because it's like, then you're not going to be able to know everybody that you're trying to hire well enough so that you can tell what they are going to be able to help with as they join your team. So you want to make sure that you know what team you have in place and you know what you're missing. And then you can bring in exactly that kind of energy that aligns with the kind of help that you need. That's the whole purpose of growing a team, because you need more resources, because you need more help. So you want to know what you need more help with, so you bring in the right people that can help with that.
And here's the thing, and part of what you probably put up the webinar now, because we're at the 12:40 mark. So I think we're getting ready to close up shop here, is that I have been where you'll talk to employees and they'll just say, I do what I'm asked of. So you might have a strength in something and you just do it because your boss asked you. But here's the thing, it doesn't mean you want to put your energy into it. And so what this does, it cuts to the chase of reality. So when I put thoughts, feelings, and values, what really drives your action and behaviors, I want to bet on putting the right person that actually wants to put their energy, right? And not just because they have a strength in it, but they truly aren't into it. I have a lot of strengths, but it doesn't mean I like doing everything.
Yeah.
I don't. Because, and then my actions and behaviors are very different. I mean, I've always been told I have good work ethic. What does that have to do with it? So this is what we're getting at. Great problem solving and the different ways that people do problem solving. It starts from a lot of that internal, right? Working and aligning people right. So then you get the kind of problem solving that you need. And then also looking on an exterior perspective when it comes to all of that. And so this is a lot that we put in within this talk, but hopefully it's getting people to start thinking that when we talk about just the concept of problem solving, and when it says, why you might not be a manager, they are dealing with this issue with their teams all the time. Because if they're trying to get a group of people to solve problems, and then they're trying to figure out how, one, to get them to solve the problems without them, and two, do I have all the right people together to even solve this problem and create a solution, and right? So they have a lot of pressure and challenges, which you probably talk a lot in your Lead for Legacy with the management of, how do I handle this? How do I do this? What do I do? And so it could be very world when you are in management and you get to that point of how to make other people great problem solvers.
And how to get them on board, how to get them to contribute, how to get them to open up. A lot of that comes up in the discussions that I have with the managers that I work with in the lead. And also the fact that they also themselves, they feel sometimes alone in this, because nobody asks them, okay, how are you doing? What do you think about it? How would you do it differently? Again, we talk about going back to what is it that you're making possible for your people to do? How are you creating that environment, right? For them to be able to work on their internal self. And that's where this kind of coaching helps the organizations transform. Because that's the kind of help that you can get as an organization to build a different kind of environment, because that's going to end up building a different kind of culture that you want to build. But it takes individual internal work to be able to do that. And that's not going to happen overnight.
So we are wrapping up. Is there anything that else we want to share before we close out? Does everyone have your Lead for Legacy link?
I think so. So I have it here. Okay, let me take this down so people can see us. All right. So this is the program that I was telling you about. It's online. It's global because we have people from different countries and different industries joining. And it is for mid to senior managers and also for small business CEOs. So if you're one of them and you need help with your people and team strategies and solutions, and you want to brainstorm and also not feel so alone and left out and isolated, come join us in the Lead for Legacy League. And I'm happy to talk to you. DM me and let's chat about it. And I want to talk about the webinar on the 27th of April, because this is part of your series, Veronica.
Yeah, and well, you and I are pairing up on this. Let's not fool ourselves, because you on helping those managers when it comes to these problems that arise, where I like to focus on, hey, let's talk about our people strategies and how we align. And we're really talking about all of these, the tent that we need to focus when it comes to transformation, right? It's personal and collective. That's my motto. And this is where you and I are joining together in really saying, was why we even made the show. All of you, the reason why is because we believe in personal and collective transformation, because there is no difference between personal and professional. And we are trying to be more futuristic about what the future lies in. Organizations are going to start to embrace this more. I think in 2021, the Neuro Leadership Institute is taking off like fire. I went and they've already updated it. And they, their mission is bringing the human to science, because they are based on neuroscience. Neuroscience is like wildfire these days too. It's like everyone's all into neuroscience. So it's coming, folks. And so we are all focusing on the people side of when it comes to achieving your business goals and outcomes, everything about it. this is strategies. The last webinar we did was really about Scrum Masters, since I'm in the Agile space. And then we're going to have another group of series. Roxana, you're always going to be with me on these. I mean, we're just like joined at the hip.
Yeah, I know.
Our mission.
But
well, you can't really do this without leadership and teaming thinking. And then I just come to the table with my Agile head, because I'm always out there all the time, in these transformations and what I see out there. Say, hey, let's start focusing on the 25%. I wish I was only hired. 75%. I said that wrong. I wish I was hired for the 75%, but they really hired me for the 25%. And we are trying to change that thinking. And I know some of you that might be watching, and this is my plea to you, you game-changing people, cultural officers, AKA also known as HR. We know that's becoming out. Because people's resources, the word resources, and it's very operational thinking. And we are saying, hey, getting a seat at the table, and it's driving 75%. This is their opportunity to get a seat at the table and really work on driving business success. 75%, folks. I'll leave it at that.
Exactly. All right. So link to the webinar, it's in the description and in the comments. Check it out. Come join us live. In the meantime, by the way, next week, we're also having a guest. It's going to be Joanna Tivig, and she's a co-founder of New Gen P. And the reason why I'm saying this is because the topic is product agility, and Joanna comes from that space of product agility, and how does it tie to business agility? So we talk about, and again, it's going to be interesting for me to share the space with two people coming from the Agile world, and I will just be here representing people from let's say the management perspective that does not know a clue about Agile, that heard about Agile, and that want to be more Agile or do things the Agile way because they've heard that it works. So it's interesting to find out your perspective.
Yeah, and we're trying to change a little bit when we do have guests that come on the show, that we're picking things that they are focused on and what they're passionate about. And so Roxana and I are going to come to the table with some curious questions for Joanna. And she's going to share her thoughts and views of product agility and how it ties to everything. Now, I will obviously ask my questions on a stance of being an Agile coach, and you're going to ask your stance on another. Anybody that has something that really aligns to our changing work show, and especially really trying to shape, like the more thought challenging and futuristic, we love to have you. And we're gonna do it where it's your platform to share that and come to our show. So if you have a topic, hit us up because we'd love to have you.
Exactly. All right. Cool. So see you next Wednesday. Any questions, drop them in the comments, and have a great rest of your week.
Yep. And see you guys.